Whether it's morning, noon, or night, we're so glad you're taking this ride with us. I'm Michael Bloss, and I'm here with Nick Singleton. This is Pursuing Greatness. Let's go.
I just wanna be anywhere you need. Doesn't even matter where when it's just you and me. If we could turn back time to the day we met. If we could hit rewind, would it end up like it's going to? And oh, baby, I just wanna feel.
Welcome to Pursuing Greatness. I'm your host, Michael Bloss. So glad you joined us on this Monday, September 28th. We've got a really cool show in store for you. Very different from our first two episodes. We sit down with a musician, Jack Bennett. You actually just heard a preview of his latest single called Back in Time. Later on in the show, we actually dive into that song, where it came from, what it's all about. So stay tuned to hear more about that. We also jump into how Jack's music career started and where it's heading in the future. So excited to share this with you. Let's jump into our episode with Jack Bennett. All right, everybody, welcome. We're here live with Jack Bennett, the ex-basketball player, current musician. So, Jack, we're excited to have you on the show. If you just want to take a second and introduce yourself to our audience for those who do not know you.
So my name is Jack Bennett. As Michael said, I am an ex-basketball player turned musician. I guess that's kind of how people would know me at this point, as a musician. So
That's the rundown.
that's the rundown.
Sweet. So, yeah, I personally am very interested in, the creative process of a musician. So we'll definitely dive into that later, as well as just kind of your process as a musician. I know you'll probably dive into this soon, but you've been doing music for 9 years now, or is it more than that?
Let's think. Yeah, so I started in 7th grade, technically. Um, so maybe 9-10 years.
That's crazy. That's a lot of time put in, a lot of hours, in the studio. So
Pretty
so
long.
take us back to 7th grade. Let's just start right from the beginning.
Yep.
What got you interested into music, and when did you realize, hey, like this might be something that I could do something with?
Yeah, so it started in 7th grade. I was watching some YouTube videos and I came across a producer producing hip hop beats on YouTube, and I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. I think I could figure that out. So for Christmas that year, I asked for a software called FL Studio, which is the same software that I use today to produce music. And I just started learning the software in 7th grade. I started making hip hop beats. I knew nothing about music. I had no um, like lessons of instruments when I was a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah,
I really just started fiddling with the software and music theory, and that's kind of where I started.
yeah. No, that's awesome. I feel like that's one thing with music, but I think it applies across the board to a lot of different things. Is you don't necessarily have to have the music school degree or the background in 8 years of piano lessons. It comes down to, if you're excited about it, you're passionate about it, you can figure it out. It might take
Right.
some time. I'm sure you've had times where frustrations with a specific project, or really trying to learn a specific software, but over time I'm sure it gets better.
Right.
Another question that comes up for you: has there been any breakthroughs for you where you feel like, oh man, okay, I'm really figuring this out? And if they have, when did that happen?
Yeah, so I would say when it comes to music production, there's so many intricate details that you need to learn in order to even come close to finishing a song.
Yeah,
So I would say probably after my my senior year of high school. So at that point I had spent 6 years maybe. And
Yeah.
obviously, I didn't take it very seriously up until that point. But I did put a lot of hours into reading, reading books or watching YouTube videos to kind of figure everything out. And I would say it wasn't until my senior year that I had a good feel for the software, where I got to the point where I wasn't worried about finding where this button was or what I
Yeah.
should do here. It's more about the creative process. And I would say the biggest breakthrough in my music was getting to the point where I could sit down at my computer and just create and
Yep.
not worry
Yep.
about the technical aspects of the software or
Yeah.
recording or whatnot. So that
Yeah.
was honestly the biggest breakthrough. And then there's a million little ones along the way.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Uh, Kind of leading into that. So obviously that goes into the creative process. You're now senior year. You're a little bit more free to create. You're not bogged
Hmm.
down by, how the heck do I do this? Where's this button? So you're saving time there. In terms of song creation, I know you mentioned there's a lot of intricate details in the process. Would you say that it's gotten harder along the way because you have a better ear for it and it needs to be more perfect? So, would you say now it's more difficult to actually release a song and be satisfied with it?
Yes and no. I would say yes because I know more about music and I have developed that ear. So I hear um, things in my own music that I don't like. And so when it comes to releasing a song, I hear those things and that's all you can think about.
Yeah,
So I would say that from that aspect, it's made it harder. And then I say no because I also do have the ear now. So I can hear something that I've done well and think, hey, I did that well. Where a few years ago, I was just kind of creating on the fly. And if it
yeah,
worked, it worked. Um, so I would say it's a yes and a no. So maybe, maybe as difficult as it was, just for different reasons.
yeah, yeah. No, that's great. And I think that's always going to be the case. It's going to be that yes and no because as you get better, you're going to be able to create higher quality, whether it's on the production side, the vocal side, whatever it is. You're going to be able to create higher quality and less tries, but your ear is also getting better too, and so you can be more critical.
Right.
And so I feel like those two things kind of go together. But yeah, let's jump into. I'm really curious. I guess there's two pieces. One on the music side, just the
Hmm.
songwriting. I know for anyone that has tried to write a song, I have tried and I guess succeeded in writing one song, and it was, I don't even know if I would say it was me doing it. It just kind of happened, and I don't know if I could sit down and have the plan of writing a song and be able to do it. So, walk us through for those listening that maybe have zero experience writing and have just been on the consuming music side, but just walk us through your creative process when it comes to actually writing a song, whether it's, there's an event that happens, there's a specific motivation that you have in writing a certain song, or is it just, ideas pop in your head and you're like, oh, that could be a song.
Yeah, yeah. So I get asked this question a lot, and I
I'm
will
sure. I'm
say
sure.
I don't have a great answer. I really don't. So I'll explain how it works for me.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say that I very rarely experience something in life and think, oh, this needs to be a song. I don't think in the
Yeah.
moment this needs to be a song. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that like it's not a specific moment in my head where I think, oh man, I'm gonna write this song in this moment and I'm gonna write about this and that and blah blah. I don't really think that.
Yeah.
The way it works for me is I'm a rather emotional guy. Um, and I'll
I'm
kind of
with you
get
there.
into I'll get into a state of being emotional
Yeah.
and I'll sit down at my computer. Maybe I'll sit down at a piano and start playing some chords, playing a melody, and then kind of let my emotion flow out of me. That sounds kind of cheesy, but that's kind of how it happens.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually don't typically write down any lyrics. I freestyle basically everything. And
And then
so,
go back and maybe write it down when you have to go back and record.
right, right. And
Okay.
actually, a
Okay.
lot of times I record live, meaning that I'll just play the, whether it's the chords or I have a full song produced out, whatever it is, I'll just play it and I start singing and maybe I'll catch on to something that I like. So,
Yeah.
for example, my most popular song in this moment, I didn't write those lyrics down. I just
Yeah.
started singing. Um, maybe in another cheesy way to say it, singing from my heart, and then
Yeah.
um, kind of going back and obviously I'll refine some things and um, work on pronunciation. But that's kind of how
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah.
It really, how it happens is it just happens,
Yep.
if that makes sense. And
No,
I
it
always
does. It
tell
does.
people I can't will a song into existence. Like I can't
Yeah.
sit down and be like, oh, I'm gonna finish a song today. That doesn't work for me.
No. No.
Um, so yeah, yeah, it's really a it just has to happen is kind of how
Yeah. Yeah.
how I would say it.
Hey,
So
I mean, if it works, then it makes sense. I mean, if that's what works for you, and that allows you to put out music, and that allows you to stay passionate and excited about it, then I mean, that's what you got to do.
right,
Kind of leads me
right.
into my next point. And one thing that I wonder about, and I would say you objectively have a good voice. I don't think there's any debate. It's unique too, which if anyone has not heard any of Jack's songs, please check him out on Spotify.
Thank you.
He's uh he's got a lot of really unique songs and a unique style to his music. When did you know that, hey, I've got a decent voice? You know, was it someone told you? Did you just kind of realize that yourself? How did that come about?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I had literally zero music
Yeah.
ability,
No
knowledge,
no
whatever you
no
want to call it.
vocal coaching, none of that.
No, nothing. And I honestly I don't think I sang a single note until my junior year of high school. I honestly don't think I ever even tried to sing.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, I was with my family one day and I was singing a worship song from church and
yeah.
my mom stopped me and she said, "Wow, Jack, you have a nice voice." And
Moms are
I
the
thought to
best.
yeah, honestly, they're the best. I owe a lot of my my musical career to my mother. Um
Yeah, yeah, that's
but
awesome.
she yeah, she just said like, "Jack, you have a decent voice. You should try singing." And I thought in my head, "Oh no, mom, what are you talking about? I'm a football player, I'm a basketball player, like I can't do that. I don't want to be Troy Bolton, whatever." Um and so, after a couple weeks, I decided that I was going to buy a guitar and start singing. And so
Yeah,
that's kind of how it started. And I learned by listening to other artists and then imitating them. So like when I would drive to school or I'd drive home from practice, I would put on a song and I'd sing along with the
yeah,
artist,
yeah,
and really kind of get a feel for how other artists do it. So
yeah. Is that still into play? Do you feel like you're still, looking to see what other artists are doing? Or do you feel like you've kind of come into your own element and you're able to just be Jack, and that's where it's coming
yeah, so I would say I'm moving that direction.
from? Okay.
When it comes to um, my style, my singing style, whatever that is, I want to make it more and more my own.
Yeah,
I would say that I'm finding that I oftentimes get the comparison of Khalid, and it's because at a in a lower register of my voice rumbles, and so does
yeah,
Khalid's, and so there's a similarity there.
yeah,
And a part of me is like, oh man, I'm gonna practice and cut that out because I want to be like I don't want to sound like Khalid. I want to sound like Jack Bennett.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
and so I would say that I'm trying to move away from sounding like other artists. I want to have a unique sound, a unique voice.
Yeah.
Um, but it's kind of difficult because
Oh, for
everything
sure.
that
Yeah.
everything that I've ever learned is from other people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I also wanted to jump into going back. You mentioned at the beginning, or I guess junior year of high school, your mom said, "Jack, you've got a decent voice. You should go into that too." And I wanted to dive into a little bit of your motivation just in doing music. Now, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure it's not for X number of streams on Spotify. Although you are approaching 500,000 streams on In This Moment, as you mentioned before, which is just awesome. So cool to
yeah,
see,
thank you.
along with close to 21,000 monthly listeners, which obviously has to feel pretty good. That like, hey, like I'm, as you say in your Spotify bio, I hope you feel this. You've got about close to 21,000 people that are at least somewhat feeling it. So I mean, that's gotta be a pretty
Yeah.
good feeling.
Yeah.
But what's your motivation in that? Obviously, you have a passion for music. Obviously, you enjoy it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have lasted 10 or 11 years doing it. But diving a couple layers deeper, what's the motivation in doing music and why do you keep doing it?
Yeah, so I would say that um it started as a curiosity.
Mhm.
I'm a naturally pretty curious person. I like
Yep.
to understand how things work. And so I really got into listening to music when I was in middle school. And then I thought to myself, well, I don't want to just be a listener. I want to be a creator. I
Yeah,
want to know how this works.
for sure.
So I would start. It started as a fascination, and then into high school, when I really started writing songs, it became an outlet for me from the rest of the world. So I loved that music became my thing, where I could go and get away from school or sports or friends or the stress of
Yeah.
normal life. It really was an escape for me. And so when I first started creating music, I never had the intent of releasing anything.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to do it
More
because
more of just a hobby.
well, it was a hobby. I enjoyed it. It was a stress reliever. And I ended up spending so much time on this hobby that I got decent at producing and I got decent at writing songs. And when I got to college, I showed some of my friends my music and they said, "Wow, Jack, this is pretty good. You should release it." And so I ended up releasing it on SoundCloud. And in the first month or so, it had 10,000 plays. My first song I put on SoundCloud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was kind of my first taste of people experiencing my music.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say one factor that drives me is I'm a competitive person by nature.
Yeah.
And I always think I need to beat myself. Like I can make a song better than that song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's definitely one factor of my motivation to keep going. And the other factor is that I I love doing it. It's still a release. It's still a place to get away. And then also kind of along with that, I want my music to be um, something that other people can enjoy and kind of step away from reality in a sense and just
Could be an outlet for them too.
correct. And that's kind of the motive behind the bio um, on my Spotify is I hope you feel this because honestly, it's like a lot of Spotify bios are like Jack Bennett was a 21-year-old producer that has this many streams and blah 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 blah. Honestly, I didn't want that. I'm like that's not what my music is. I just want someone to experience and feel like they can relate to it in their own story.
Yeah,
So
for
that I
sure,
would
for
say
sure.
those things are kind of what keep me going.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Um, it's cool to hear too that it's progressed over time. It started out as a curiosity, and then it led to, oh, I could incorporate singing into this. Okay, I'm kind of getting good at this. And then your friends encourage you to release a song. You release it. It has some success, and now it's, all right, I got to beat myself. And I want people to experience, you know, feel something out of it, whatever that is, and also be able to
Right.
have it maybe as an outlet from the daily grind, from, the stresses and the things that come with living today. Um, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
Right.
that's really cool. And I think too, you've kind of already touched on this through that, but this podcast obviously is called Pursuing Greatness. That's what we strive to tell, the stories of people just like you that are chasing after something. So I guess moving ahead, what's your goal with music? Do you plan on doing music full time? Do you hope to have maybe a job and continue doing music as a hobby?
Yeah. So uh, I kind of had a fork in the road this past summer, really, in this past year, um, where I've had the opportunity to go and pursue music a little more than I have in the past. So I would say that I am taking and decided to take the route of I'm gonna go and get um, a job. I was gonna say normal job, but that I don't know if you could say that. But I'll go and get a job and do music as a hobby. And when I finish songs, I'll release them. I won't make it a career. But I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a difficult decision because
Yeah,
I really do love it.
yeah,
And I would say that this semester in school, I have been so busy with school the last, I think, 3 weeks. I haven't worked on a single song,
yeah,
and I'm starting to feel deprived.
for sure.
Um, and so it's definitely something that it's a difficult decision, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But as of right now, I'm just gonna continue doing music as a hobby and releasing stuff when they get done and not putting too much pressure on it. So,
And I think that's a good medium too, because again, I don't want to speak for you, but I could see that if you said, "Hey, I'm going to graduate school. I'm not going to get a job. I'm going to pursue music full time." First of all, I know that unfortunately, music is a pretty highly saturated industry, and it's difficult to make a livable wage in music
right,
unless you are one of the top musicians, and especially now, I mean, shows are canceled. People are not, concerts aren't happening at the rates they were,
right,
which is making it really difficult. And I'm sure Spotify isn't sending you a massive check for every time somebody listens to a song. And
right.
so that doesn't help too. So yeah, it obviously makes it a difficult decision, because I'm sure you have other things that you are interested in, that you are excited about,
Right, right,
with work. And so to keep it as a hobby, I think personally that's just a really good medium to also not get to a point where you're burned out. I'm sure there's been artists that have gone all in. They've either dropped out of school or um, chased after music full time, and then really just got burned out or just kind of
right,
hit a wall.
right.
So I think that's a wise decision, but I definitely feel you there, that's a really tough decision,
Yeah,
especially when opportunities are put in front of you and you're like, oh wow, that could be pretty sweet. That could be that could be awesome.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely is um, a difficult decision. And this is actually something that I was thinking about before we started this conversation. Is I grew up and my father always told me, he said, you should do what you love and you'll be good at what you're doing if you love it. And you'll find a way to make money doing it. You'll be able to support yourself if you love what you're doing. And I've thought about that in terms of music. And
Yeah,
honestly, if I'm going to be realistic, it's not necessarily a field where just because I love it, I can make it work.
yeah,
That's not really how it works. It's so dependent on people wanting to listen to my music.
yeah, yeah,
Um, And so, if I wanted to take music full time, I would be banking on the fact that people really like the song that I'm putting out,
Yeah.
or people really want to listen to the album or come see me at a show, or they want to buy my t-shirts and hoodies and blah
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And that's just, I don't know. I think that's a big risk to take.
For sure.
So,
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Especially when, I mean, putting out music, I would say for the most part is you're putting yourself out there. It's a vulnerable thing to release a song, one that you sang it from your heart. I mean, you mentioned before that you're not
mhm.
necessarily writing down lyrics, like it's coming straight from your head and your heart. It's along with you being a more emotional guy, you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, and when you're putting something out there, um, I'm sure it could be tough to think, man, I'm putting this out there. This is coming from my heart, and there's a chance that people might not like it too much. Have you had any challenges with that?
Oh, totally. It is one of the scariest things I've ever experienced, for sure. And I would say that fear only heightens the more success that you have. So when I first started releasing music, I thought, "Oh man, I don't really care if people don't like it. I do it for myself. Whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
If that's selfish, then whatever. I just want to release it, and if people like it, they like it." Where after experiencing what little success I have, it just amplifies everything. So, if I release a new song and it's not as good as one of my older songs, people will say like, "Oh, I still like that song better." And that's hard to take.
for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just good for any content creator, creative business person, even, is you really just, you need to do your best, and you need to be satisfied with your work, and leave it at that. And
Yeah,
um others' opinions don't, they're not the end of the world.
yeah, yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, yeah, we actually in the intro to this episode, we we gave a little snippet of your newest song, "Back in Time." So if
Yep.
you could just give us a little rundown, either what that song's about, what sparked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would you say about it?
Yeah. So this the title of this song is Back in Time. And this summer when I started writing it, I spent probably about a month this summer working on that song.
Okay.
Um and the idea of that song is basically, and obviously if you've listened to my music, you know that I'm writing quote unquote love songs.
Yep.
Um
The
and
emotional
so
guy is
basically,
coming out.
the emotional guy writing about his girlfriend, yeah, that's me. So basically, what it is thinking, if I went back 2 years, 2.5 years, before my girlfriend and I started dating, would we look at where we are now and think that that would actually happen?
Hmm.
So that's kind of the gist of Back in Time, is
Yeah.
like, if we went back in time, would we think that this would actually happen? Like, could we imagine that we'd be where we are today? Um, and that's kind of um, how that came to be. And actually, there's a couple of references to my song in this moment,
Okay.
um, because 2 years ago, from this past summer, is when I wrote in this moment about this same girl. Um, and that song is about, like, let's not think about anything else. Like, let's just be here in this moment right now
Yeah.
and just enjoy each other. And so when writing this song, I kind of had that in mind. Um, it's like, if we went back in time to that summer, to that moment, would we think that
Okay.
we'd be where we are now.
Okay.
So
I see what you
that's
did
kind of
there.
how it all works. That's kind of how it all played out in my mind. So
And it worked out too that those two songs appear right next to each other on your Spotify account. So it worked out really
yeah,
well.
it is working out well.
We'll see if it stays that way for a
So
little while, but at least for now it's looking pretty good.
yeah.
Awesome. One thing on this show that, again, the show is called Pursuing Greatness. We've dove into a lot of your story all the way back to seventh grade, through the
Hmm.
music. And when I say your story, I'm obviously only referring to your music career. There's obviously a whole other side of Jack Bennett that we did not have time to jump into today. But
Hmm.
hopefully somewhere down the line we'll be able to have you back on the show and be able to jump into that a little bit more. But
Yeah.
one question we like to ask all of our guests is, if you could choose one word for your pursuit of greatness, whether that's in music, in school, you're obviously still in school right now, in your career after school, whatever it is, if there's one word you could use to describe your path to your own greatness, whatever that is, what would that one word be?
Uh, I used it earlier. Curiosity is the one word that I would say hands down. Um, yeah,
Elaborate a little bit on that one.
yeah. So I would say that I believe that some of the most um, accomplished, well-rounded, however you want to state that, people are curious people in nature. People that question the norm, they question what they're doing. They're curious about um, how things can change, how things can work. And I would say, in my musical journey and the success that I've experienced, it's because of my curiosity for music. And I would say life in general is just that. I mean, I guess for myself, that's my word, is I want to stay curious. I don't ever want to get to the point where I think that I know enough or I know it all. So yeah, I guess that'd be my word for pursuing greatness.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Well, Jack, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, learning a little bit more about your process, about what's going on behind the scenes with your music, and we're really excited to hopefully hear some more songs down the line. Again, if you guys have not heard any of Jack's songs, we previewed Back in Time at the beginning of the show, and you can check Jack out on Spotify or Apple Music. Please do so. Again, Jack, pleasure having you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hope to talk to you again on the show later.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Of course, of course. All right, everybody, this is Pursuing Greatness, episode 3 with Jack Bennett. We're out.
If we went back in time, back in time, back in time, oh, back in time, back in time, back in time, oh. But now we made it the farthest I know. I just wanna go anywhere you take me, baby. Streets I made it gold. I just wanna be anywhere you need. Doesn't even matter where when it's just you and me.